to Forum Views, your local magazine show from Cavan TV with myself, Daniel Downey, and
me, Sheila Riley.
And welcome to the show this evening, folks. Remember, if you want anything on Cavan TV or come on Cavan TV, contact us on cavantv.com or drumlinmedia@gmail.com. So, who have we on the show this evening, Sheila?
Well, maybe we'll let our guests introduce themselves. We'll start off with Jack Calders.
Well, I'm Jack Calders from Cavan Town, retired musician, and enjoying a bit of sun when we have it.
Brilliant.
I think that's as good an introduction as anyone could ever offer. Yasmin, you tell us a bit about yourself as well.
Yeah, my name's Yasmin Mazzaroni and I'm the editor of Contemporary Living magazine, which is now online at contemporaryliving.ie.
Brilliant.
Maybe tell us a bit about Contemporary Living. How long is it on the go now? It's a good while, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 10 years it's been on the go,
Oh,
but it's not been online for the past 7 or 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's a purely online magazine now, so people can access it on Facebook or and get regular updates, or they can just log in every day and see what articles are on
How's
the
it
magazine.
going for you? Is it still getting out there as much as the hard copy, or is it a challenge to make that difference?
Well, obviously for me, I've always been in magazine publishing, so to go on to the an online version of the magazine, I'm learning as I go along. To be honest, but it's going really well. I think that's the way everything is nowadays. People want things instantaneously via the internet.
Yeah, they do indeed. That's true. Do you find that you're writing pieces differently now that you're doing for the web instead of for print?
Yeah, exactly. There's a definite difference actually. It's more instantaneous. People have a shorter attention span when they're on the internet, so they're shorter, punchier articles, and it's more about community events and what's going on the community rather than the lifestyle subjects that the magazine was known for before.
Okay, that's interesting though, isn't it? Obviously there's a market for that, for the kind of community driven stuff, community notices type of things that are happening.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, we'll get moving then with this week's agenda, and first on the list is the electric car has arrived in Cavan.
Yeah.
Jet, will you be heading out in your electric car?
Well, I had one when I was a baby.
It's one of those wind-up.
Yeah, I used to go under the bed and I'd be crying for my mother to get it back out again. It didn't do 150 kilometres like for 3 cents. I don't know what it cost that time. But I had a granny in America and she used to send me these toys, and they'd be new in Ireland. You would never have seen them, you know. Even the sponge balls. I was the most popular young guy growing up in Arva.
Sponge ball in Arva.
The sponge balls, we used to play against the side of a house, handball, and they were never seen in this country at the time, you know. They were completely a new thing in Ireland.
That's fascinating.
And send me bundles of comics. The Eagle, Dan Dare, all these things. And I used to lend them to everybody else then, and they go round the town, they come back to me, you know. But it was
probably a few of them still to be found around Arva.
Yeah. I remember one of the guys at school one day saying, "Look, J.J. Calders was reading comics, master." And he says to him back, he says, "Well, I tell you," he says, "if you read as many comics as J.J. Calders, you might read as good as him."
What about you, Yasmin? Would your head be turned by an electric car?
I think it's very interesting. I think it's really interesting that they're in Cavan. I suppose with the fact that fuel prices are increasing and people are really starting to consider it as a viable alternative. I know the cars themselves are very expensive, and of course because they're so new, we're not into the second-hand market yet with electric cars. But the fact that we've got a charging point in Cavan Town at the courthouse means it is viable, and that if you are interested in doing that, I mean, according to the article, I think it only costs £2 to €3 euros, I should say, to recharge your battery.
Yeah,
so it makes it really cost effective.
Very cheap.
Yeah.
Do you need a special thing to charge them with?
Yeah,
or
you
can
do.
you bring your own generator?
No, you
No.
get a thing with the car, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And they said the ESB will actually allow you to install a charge point in your home free of charge if you do buy a car. So that would make it even easier, actually.
I'd say it'd be very economical for somebody making short journeys in particular.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not for the long commute, and it does say that in the article itself this week. And this car has arrived in Brady's garage, and to great announcement, fanfare, I suppose is the best way to describe it. But it does say it's not really for a long commute. It's not for somebody who's going to Dublin every day.
I thought that when they did invent it and go to the trouble of inventing it, that they would have, when you got it started and moving, that it would charge itself.
Yeah.
like a dynamo.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know,
that's a
I
good
thought
point, yeah.
that they should have.
Like when they first brought out, those electric assisted bicycles, they have now the ones where, when you're going down a hill, you generate electricity to push you
Charges
up the hill.
Yeah.
Maybe, that could be the
Oh,
next
very
step.
Good, yeah.
That's, I thought they should have been doing something like that, but maybe we'll do one tomorrow.
You
Well,
see,
we'll
the
patent
technology.
it, won't we?
Hey,
We'll
that's out
patent
tomorrow,
it.
yeah.
The technology is obviously advancing all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I think we have a picture of the
Yeah,
of
I
actually
think
of the car. And that's
there's
the Tom
the
Brady, I think, the manager in
Back of the car. And I think on page 37 of the Celt as well, Seamus Enright does a kind of a review of how it drives and what it's like to drive it. So do check it out, folks. Absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds
But
very
keeping with our green agenda, we're talking about wind farm windfall for a community, €114,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, sustainability maybe is paying back to
Yeah.
the communities that adopt it.
Well,
Jess,
when
you were saying
when
before
when
the
you
show.
when you see like all the objections there was to these type of things before
Mm-hmm.
the windfall came,
Yeah.
I can see a lot of communities now. We want one,
Yeah.
because of it to support different organisations and
Mm-hmm.
which football clubs and all that. They're all
Absolutely,
getting.
there's a phenomenal
yeah.
list of
Yeah.
organisations in Cavan after benefiting, Cavan and Monaghan after benefiting
Yeah.
from funding from electricity through these projects, through the wind farms that were set up, which we're told in the article. There's enough wind farm energy for 35,000 houses in
Yeah.
Cavan Monaghan, which is astonishing.
Yeah,
It
it's just
is
the way to go.
astonishing. It is one of the ways to go,
Yeah,
definitely, I think
like
so.
the sea, they should be harnessing the sea the same way, and
Yeah.
they will too, I
Our
think. But
natural resources.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Cavan's well placed to have even more wind farms. The lay of the land.
The drumlins.
Absolutely,
drumlins,
and the
exactly.
geography of it is fantastic. I think it's perfect for them. I don't know if I'd like one in my back garden though. Would you?
Well, that's always the way. I actually think they're beautiful. I
I agree
think
with you
I
there,
think
yeah.
I know a lot of people think they're ugly, but I actually love them.
There's
Well,
something
I
very
remember-
soothing about them, isn't there?
Yeah, I
I
think.
remember a man came back from the First World War to Arva. He lived close to us, and we used to wonder what this thing was spinning around in the air behind his house. ASB hadn't come to Arva at this stage. There was still tilly lamps and oil lamps and candles, all that kind of stuff. And he invented this thing that he had electricity in his house.
Mhm.
He brought back the technology with him from the war.
Oh my god.
And
Brilliant.
that old Tommy Davis, I remember it well. And we were all fascinated that something like that could light a bulb.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, we were only
Using-
kids watching this stuff.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So that was the
That's
first wind farm
Yeah.
in
Yes,
Cavan.
absolutely. There you are. Yes. An instantaneous light. I suppose
Yes.
that must have been
Yes.
amazing to just switch on and you would have seen a light.
Yeah, there's
There is an issue, of course, with the usage of the wind farms and of the turbines. You know that they can power like huge amounts of places, say in Africa, or places that aren't using a lot of energy. But over here, it's completely different because we're so
Well,
what are we energy
Energy
heavy,
dependent?
energy dependent.
yeah.
Yeah.
Driving down through Spain,
Yeah.
Spain or
Yeah.
France, you can see
You
them.
see the lines and
Every
lines,
Lines of them everywhere. They're way ahead of us, like in
We
that
haven't
type of
capitalised
technology.
on our potential there.
Yeah.
I think you've made a good point about the geography, that you should be
Yes.
able to.
And we should consider those options, and the fact that the money that they've received, 114,000 for this coming round of funding, I think it's $500,000 since 2006, has to be used on sustainable projects. And so as a result, community centres, churches, town halls, community football grounds, as you said, are reducing their energy consumption.
And
Yeah.
creates
So
employment.
It is
Yeah,
creating
yeah.
employment, so it's reducing our energy consumption, which is great. So we're reducing our dependency on electricity,
Yeah.
but also it's helping these community groups to sustain themselves because they're reducing their bills. So that's very important, I think, too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
it's a good point as well.
definitely.
Well, let's hope the wind didn't blow too hard
That
in
is
Cavan
terrible, cheesy
during the fla. This is the worst link in the world. We're going to move on.
Oh,
We're going to move
We're
on to
moving
the
on
kilted
to
priest.
Neil Horn, our Grand Prix priest.
According to the
Grand Prix
headline
priest.
in the set. This week.
He's making a formal complaint. Why?
He's making a formal complaint against Cavan Gardaí because he's complaining about his treatment at the hands of the guards when he was in Cavan during the Fla. So that's really why he sent a 13-page letter to the CELT this week outlining the nature of his complaints and expressing his anger at his treatment. And he said at the end of the letter that he would consider coming back to Cavan, so everybody, you can sleep well tonight if he's invited back by the Cavan Gardaí, the County Council and the Anglo-CELT, incidentally. So there you are, folks. It's put up to you. What do you think
what
about
Cavan
TV?
Should Cavan TV have 25?
We're going to issue.
We want you back.
Well, I was wondering, some woman objected.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
I was wondering, was it to his kilt or was it his dancing that she objected to?
I think she objected to the kilt.
Or a bit of both.
Both could be considered a crime, but
I think his high steps were a bit high.
Yeah.
I think the kilt. You think people were complaining about the length of the kilt and that he was dancing.
The shortness or the length?
Well, I saw him. I saw him actually
there we have a picture.
dancing around.
We have a picture here of him. There he is dancing on the streets of Cavan. Quite short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's fuss over nothing, really.
Do you think so?
A whole lot to do about nothing.
Well, I suppose the Gardaí have to take complaints seriously.
Well, that's it, yeah.
I mean, certainly, they have to. If somebody complains, they would have had to approach him. I was standing on the streets and I saw him prancing around with a big banner, and he was being ridiculed. Really, people were giggling and they were sniggering all the time. Yeah. So that was the middle of the day. So just imagine if he was continuing like that, maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night, when there'd be drunken youths or people.
And in fairness, that's kind of what the guards were saying to him. If you read the article,
he was taking the focus away.
It was more to protect
what can we do for you?
If
you're going to insist on
taking the focus away from the music and anything else.
So they can't do right for doing wrong. Really, that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and do you remember somebody actually came up to him and said to him about on the street in Cavan? Did you see that in the piece about that? Were you the fella who knocked the guy, knocked the athlete during the marathon? I think that was in Athens or something. So he took a bit of a hit for that, I think, as well. Not a physical hit, but he took a bit of verbal abuse for that as well on the street.
Well, that's everybody near us. Everybody was saying, "Oh gosh, that's the guy from the Grand Prix. That's the guy who stopped the Grand Prix." So people knew who he was.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll have him back and for the gathering when we're gathering people here.
He is Irish, but he's not from here. He's from Kerry, I think. Okay.
Yeah. We're on to a 1 million enterprise centre set for Cootehill. There's a plan to have tenants by the end of 2013. Great for Cootehill because Cootehill really needs some rejuvenation there. Yeah. It's like a ghost town, some of the locals have told me. So it's...
Especially the IDA pulled out of Cavan, the left is in the lurch really, without doing anything, and this is a great initiative to get going.
Mm-hmm. Is there a danger it could become another white elephant though, or we see them all over the place, these type of facilities?
It's difficult really. You're between a rock and a hard place because you hear about international or even national investors when they want to relocate somewhere, they're always looking for premises. Yeah. And if the premises don't exist, they bypass you and they don't even consider you. So it looks like they're going to sort of keep it as part of it as a shell, and some of it will be rented out to local businesses. Yeah. So hopefully it won't be a white elephant.
I think the key there is what you said about the local, bringing in local businesses.
Exactly.
That's the vital part of that.
And they don't mention whether it'll be at a reduced rate or reasonable rents. I would hope that would be the case.
Well, as someone who's been in business for a couple of years, 10 years at this stage, you're seeing it on the ground yourself. Are there enough supports available there for people like that?
It's difficult really. I suppose there's so many people at the moment who want to get into business and who've got ideas, who maybe have been unemployed or have done some training, received redundancy. So there's people out there that want to be entrepreneurs. Yeah. And certainly the lead story on the CELT, I know we're not supposed to be talking about it today. They were saying that there's a lot of startups here in Cavan, so we're a very entrepreneurial county. So I think there are supports in the form of the enterprise board.
And we need to move forward. We need to look forward. We can't be...
That's right.
We can't just lay down and...
Let it all happen. You're right in that regard. All right.
And at the end of the day, it's most of the businesses in the country are small, medium-sized enterprises. They're the biggest employers. The small family businesses that employs 2 or 3 people, they're the biggest employers.
Well, we're seeing time and time again that they're not getting enough money. I mean, they're not getting the supports from the banks, not to mind from the agencies as such. Yeah. I mean, that's the huge difficulty for small businesses the like of what you would like to see in that enterprise centre in Katoon.
Exactly. That's the frightening thing, is that it's the cash flow. That's the problem with all businesses at the moment.
And it's state of the art as well, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of state of the art, we have our state of the art one-time barracks is now going over to the VEC, who are in the final stages of negotiation to take over. And put what there?
I think they're going to do training, education and training. They're using all the facilities. It's a fantastic building. I mean, that building is only, 20 years old, isn't it?
Yeah, it has football field, it has gym, there's everything.
Yeah.
I think it's catering and things like that are going
But
to
a
be
side
great.
issue, a side issue of that is we're losing our CEO for the VEC, Colin McAvoy, and like he has been so innovative and since he got that post, he's going to Cavan or Longford Westmeath. That is a serious loss, I think. You know,
he was a great driver for innovation.
Absolutely brilliant man.
He really was.
But there's another point there in that Cavan Monaghan has been amalgamated. If you go over to Monaghan now, there's a €35 million development underway in the site of the barracks over there, the old Monaghan barracks. It's going to be the VEC headquarters. It's also going to be, I think there's early school care, preschool care, and there's at the second level as well. Like, you know, that development is going on literally up the road, and yet they're going to get taken over the barracks here as well. Isn't it a strange setup too?
But it is, but it's, at least I'm not going to let them go derelict and fall down and become an eyesore. Because even today, if you're driving out by it, the grass isn't being cut. The way it used to be kept, you know. And
but that was the issue with Monaghan Barracks, that it was left derelict for long enough that now they have to completely redo it.
Oh, it's a total refurb job.
Get in there now and have something in there maintaining it, I suppose.
Exactly,
is the strategy.
And well, who knows? I mean, they're talking about joining using the two VCs will join together for this joint educational board. So you have to hope that there's going to be positive linkages and it's going to be positive for the region, where that we have we follow our constituency boundaries, we've got a large area and we've got expertise across the two counties, whereby that we can become a region of excellence for further education training, secondary school training and that sort of thing. So hopefully that's the case.
You'd like to think that would be the case, but there is a third level facility in Monaghan as it is at Moffat, then there is as we know the institute here in Cavan. So doesn't it seem like there's a kind of a crossover of services across two counties which are essentially very close to duplication? Sorry, essentially. Sorry, it's Friday and my brain is melted.
But there is also cross border, there's kids from Cavan doing training in Enniskillen.
Has been for years and years.
I think it's the way to go, because there is such a demand for college places here in Cavan and Monaghan. It's a good sign of the times. It's a bit of hope for the future. You know.
Is it inevitable though that somebody's going to lose out though? I mean, as things tighten, as the purse strings tighten. I mean, we're going to be talking about health cuts here later in the programme.
Well, from an electoral education as well. From an electoral point of view, though, probably, because what you're talking is Cavan, half of Cavan merging with the full of Monaghan electorally.
Yes.
And then so Cavan is going to be the poor man of that partnership.
That's true.
I actually feel more sorry for West Cavan, who'll be amalgamated with South Donegal, Leitrim.
And Leitrim,
It's very random, all right.
But I think that'll change in a couple of years.
Do you think
so? Leitrim got it there.
Well, the boundary commissions, they're reviewed every time there's an election or after there's an election anyway, so possibly you could have a point in relation to that.
Well, the difficulty is you have to ask the question, why are they forming the educational training boards? That's because Colum obviously is being very careful to say that they employ 600 people at the VEC here in County Cavan. There's no talk of any job losses. I mean, Cavan has seen an awful lot of job losses over the past 2 to 3 years, and there's no point in scaremongering. But it begs the question, why are they forming new educational boards across a couple of counties if the existing organisations work very well? So I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people who are concerned about jobs because, as you say, are the duplications. So I just hope that they'll find ways of working in positive ways with one another. so that they can form centres of excellence.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
that's a very good point.
on that hopeful point,
Yes.
we're going to go for an ad break, folks, but we'll be back after this.
Pat Short here. You're watching Cavan TV.
Welcome back to Cavan TV. You're tuned into Forum Views, your local magazine show covering local and national news with our local guests, myself, Daniel Downey, and
Me, Sheila Riley.
very good, very good. We have Yasmin Mazarani on with us and Jet Calders, and we're racing through some of the local issues today. And on the next local issue, we're going to be talking about the new relief road for Ballyconnell to alleviate up to 50% of the heavy vehicles on the road. Great news.
Well, I think it is great news. I mean, they're saying that there's normally 1,000 heavy vehicles per day.
It's huge.
It's just an incredible number. I mean, certainly before the relief road, I used to go up to Ballyconnell quite a lot, and that's my image of Ballyconnell is
Yes.
just really heavy vehicles and this very loud noise of vehicles going down the road. So I think it's positive for the town in the fact it's going to reduce pollution, sound, noise pollution, all that sort of stuff. And it gives the town opportunities to develop itself in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I think places can't see this as a bad thing. Often you'll hear people say, though, that, we're missing out the passing traffic.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I see it in the opposite view now, because I just happened to be down there talking to a couple of people a couple of weeks ago, and they reckon that they make a ghost town of Belturbet. One grocery shop owner, he says, all the trucks, when they're coming up, a lot of them, he says, pull in here to go to the Seven Horses or the restaurant
This is
for
for
the
Belturbet,
breakfast.
which is further up the road, of course.
Belturbet,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And Belturbet, and they reckon that what will happen is they are going to be avoiding the town, and the small shops are going to suffer, while I don't know, it caused a bit of controversy with a politician there too. I don't know whether it's true or not, that someone seen this coming, and I can't make accusations when I don't know.
Sure, of course.
You can say anything you want as long as you say
lots
it.
of people would have seen it coming. It was well flagged for a long time.
But
both the
he built a
Belturbet
filling
and
station and a
Belturbet and
restaurant.
Ballyconnell. These things have been flagged for years and years. It's been well known. Do you think two towns really benefit though? You have to look at Butler's Bridge. Butler's Bridge has really, I think it's benefited anyway. It looks great since it was bypassed, since it doesn't have all those cars going through it every day.
I suppose different people will give you different impressions, won't they, really? At the moment, I know Belturbet are concerned, as you've said, because we're now in the recession, aren't we? So before the recession, they were delighted because everything was booming and they didn't want the heavy traffic. Whereas now, obviously, there's lots of concerns that people are going to bypass the town and not spend their money. There's not going to be footfall. However, it's an opportunity because Belturbet in particular is such a beautiful town. It can become a really fantastic tourist spot.
Yeah, and Ballyconnell could be made, so much more could be made at Ballyconnell.
Oh, definitely. It's on the Woodford River. It's just a beautiful spot.
More pedestrianised, I see your point,
Exactly. And, ultimately, that's what we want. We want nice shopping spaces or social areas in our towns where we can mix, where we can meet each other and obviously spend our euros. That's what the idea is.
Difficult to go for an ice cream in a park and hear going by.
It's difficult to cross the street in Ballyconnell sometimes.
Exactly.
It's outrageous.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what are we on to next?
We're moving on next to this very sad story, really, on the front of the Anglo South this week, and they've dealt with it a few times in relation to the Cavan suicides are almost 4 times the official numbers, according to So Sad. And this is that, what So Sad are saying is the official figures are out there, but they believe that they're a lot higher.
Yeah.
And they go into kind of the reasons for that. But there was a big walk out last weekend, I think, a rally, and that kind of a lot of people out there. That's covered pictorially in the Anglo South as well this week, further on in the paper, which is worth talking about as well. Obviously, people are putting they're rowing behind this type of initiative now, aren't they? I think this is World Suicide Prevention Week. It's worth mentioning as well. This is in relation to this.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's good that we're talking about it. I think it's very good it's front page news because it means that we feel more comfortable talking about suicide and we're highlighting these issues. Although, as you say, they describe in the piece why it's not an accurate, official statistics aren't an accurate reflection of suicides because single car fatalities, drowning incidents and even inquests, they don't like to say whether it's suicide. They'd rather say it was misadventure or an open verdict. So of course it's the official stats aren't correct in that respect. A true reflection, I suppose. But then that means for the whole of Ireland because it would be the same for each county. So it means that
I don't think it's any different here than it is anywhere else. It's very good
really that means that in Ireland, we feel that we have an awful problem when it comes to suicide. Looking at the official data, but now if this is the real situation on the ground, it's much more serious than we actually
if you extrapolate that and put it across the country, it's even with the cautious data, it's still a larger killer than all the road accidents in the country. Yet road accident prevention advertisements and media is huge. The kind of promotion of being careful on the roads, some of that money could be redirected into, for example, So Sad, which is a great organisation.
Do you think, Jet, that the stigma of suicide, do you think that's alleviating in some way, that people don't feel that families don't feel that as strongly as they used to?
Right. Well, I'm the PRO at the North Eastern Region Family Support Network, and it's harrowing some of the stories you hear. Like if a kid is addicted to drugs or drink or anything like that, and they commit suicide, it's put down as misadventure or drugs or alcohol. They never label it what it is. And we deal with fathers and mothers of kids. Like we share the offices with So Sad for our meetings on a Monday night, and some of the stories you hear, like I've seen men and women, strong people coming in, relating the story of their kids on drugs or at some type of addiction and committing suicide, and them sitting there crying and your heart can go out to them and they're wondering what could they have seen, what could they do to have seen this coming. And So Sad are brilliant because they're concentrating on the warning signs, which is what
It isn't that vital. I mean, that
Yes.
type of an organisation did not exist, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
We all know, people who we know over the years died by suicide, and you'd have to look back and think, God, what could have been done for them? And it's only now when you see organisations like that coming forward.
Yeah.
And that is a huge step that they exist, even, isn't it?
And the fallout for families afterwards, blaming each other
Yeah.
for if you were to be doing this or if you were to be doing that, and it's nobody's fault.
No.
But it does cause a lot of ripples in families and blame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's such a sad thing, really,
Yes.
isn't it? As you say,
The impact.
the impact amongst the family, but also through in the local community as well. But I think that the profile of SOSAD and other support organisations, as you say, as I said, being on the front page of the CELT, it means we're talking about it. And so if people do have those thoughts, at least they're aware of places that they can go to ask for help. And I suppose that the one big thing as well is the fact that if you ever do feel that there's somebody at risk, you should always ask them.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
Yeah.
You should always ask, have you contemplated suicide?
Reach out to them, yeah.
And it's the one question you should always ask, no matter how difficult it is.
You see, they always branded this as a mental illness, which it's not. And it has been pushed by the HSE and everyone else, these so-called professionals, as a mental illness, no treatment for a mental illness, instead of depression. And if you're depressed, you are a little bit mental, and to put you to sleep with sleeping tablets and this kind of stuff. They never got to the root cause of the problem, the anxiety and what was troubling the people, get the counselling for them and put that in place. But it's terrible that you have to go with your cap in hand begging for money to support these groups.
Yes.
It's not.
That's
It's
true,
a
it is.
terrible indictment of the
When you see what does get money,
Society.
and then you see
Yes.
these groups being cash
Yeah.
starved, it really doesn't make a lot of sense.
Actually, I would like to mention that there is a fundraiser for SOSAD tomorrow.
Very good.
Okay.
There's a fun run, Loop the Lake fun run in Killashandra.
Killashandra is right.
Excellent.
Tomorrow at
Place.
12:30, so you can register from 11 o'clock tomorrow at the GAA grounds in Killashandra. So with the weather being so great for tomorrow, even
No
if
excuse.
there's no
So
excuse.
folks,
Exactly.
Get out there and support the fun run and support of
Absolutely.
SOSAD. It really is. And get more information on SOSAD as well in the Anglo Celt this week. Contact them at 049 43 26339 and check out Community Focus. We had
Peter Maroney, who's quoted in the article in the Celt this week, in the SOSAD article. He was in talking to Laura during the week on Community Focus, and you can see that online on
Lovely.
Cavan TV.
Well, we're talking about getting some funding for these groups. Where is the funding going, though? That's the question.
Apparently, it is going.
On tablets. 200,000 euro bill on the way for TD's tablets. And I'm not talking about medication here. I'm talking about the electronic tablets.
no haircuts there.
No.
That's right, exactly.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that incredible?
36,000 euro for travel for counsellors, 28 million payments for counsellors, and moving to the Senate. This was counsellors who got elected last year to the Dáil or Senate, and that had previously been counsellors, so they got a kind of a
little payoff as they move,
As you
maybe
do.
for the trauma of moving jobs.
ease
From one
the
room to
pain.
another.
Cut it
Ease
off,
the
though.
pain of leaving the council
Maybe it's
chamber
for
and heading off
office
to the
removal
office.
or something like that. I don't know.
I think those tablets should be distributed to the people in the
Schools.
country that have to listen to them.
Yes, definitely. But some of the travel expenses is incredible. Like, why does a local councillor have to put on travel expenses to go to Cardiff, Taipei, Hong Kong, Seoul, Chennai and Brussels in a year? That's incredible.
Yeah.
They're absolutely, Are they justified? Do you think what they say when I've asked councillors about their expenses, say mayors or whatever, particularly they're obviously the ones that travel predominantly during the year, they say, that they literally are flying the flag for the county when they head off. That this is our PR.
Well, in some cases, there is PR. I do think that is the case. There can be opportunities to showcase a county or showcase the country for investment opportunities. However, sort of scanning through some of the destinations that they've mentioned there and some of the trips, they certainly don't appear to be proper business missions where you are actually going out there to showcase businesses, showcase the country. So I think there has to be a case put forward for any business trip that demonstrates that there is going to be a benefit. I mean, I understand things can't be, you can't immediately see a benefit after a trip, but there has to be perceived benefits. And if there isn't, well, they shouldn't be doing the trips.
Yeah. Fair enough. What do you think, Jed?
Well, I'm PR, like I said, for the Family Support Network, and we have to travel to meetings at least one or twice a week all over the country, and we have to beg from the Drugs Task Force, National Drugs Task Force, for expenses. While they used to give us a few thousand, now they've cut us down to 5,000. That runs from Ballyfermot down to Enniskillen, basically, you know.
Yeah.
And we used to be able to send people away for respite and into different places, and we can't get expenses.
So you're seeing that actually on the ground, you're facing it week in week, and then you're looking at these figures in the newspapers. It must really sicken you.
Well, they don't need to, anyone can travel the world on a laptop.
Yeah,
you know?
That's
they can
true.
Skype.
Yeah.
They can do all that.
On Skype on their tablets.
Yeah.
It's true.
They're probably going to buy the tablets.
I think we have a top of the pops list here of the top 10 travelling counsellors' expense claims. And
Andrew Montague, I think, there is at the top, and he has been the mayor of Dublin in the last year. So he's, I think, his
possibly
itinerary
justifiable
that you
there.
called out there. So that's been fairly impressive.
Yeah, quite impressive. There's quite a few there that are kind of, Cork City to go to New York, London, Shanghai, Rennes and Boston.
I see Kieran Byrne from Fingal managed to go to Marrakesh.
Chengdu in southern China and Marrakesh. Which I'm not sure if we have very close links with inland southern China and Marrakesh.
But we'll have to see maybe the next time we're in Fingal, what the Marrakesh influence is there.
It must be
maybe
huge.
there'll be some sort of markets or something.
Who knows?
We'll see. We'll wait with breathless anticipation to see what the story is there.
But as you can see,
they don't seem to be made accountable for what to do.
No
one. They don't answer to anybody.
Yeah.
Well, of course, they say they're accounting for every penny, but still, it's hardly.
Well, I don't really understand why they don't have a set wage.
Yeah.
That's the thing I don't understand, why they don't have a set wage, and then we get rid of all this issue with relation to expenses and other benefits and so on, and the other issue about them sitting on board and taking other payments on top of
that's another very important point, actually.
on top of their annual wage.
Well, we have
just find that
kind of brings us to our next story, which is the highest paid counsellor in. There's best paid counsellor defends his 83,000 package there, and he's paid for various boards and things that he's on. So,
and if you bear in mind that the average industrial wage in this country is in around €30,000, like that's phenomenal money really to be pulling in for boards and for basically what should be a public service.
It's absolutely obscene. That money, all that excess money, that it's just pure waste. It's thrown into a black hole, and the help that could give to different organisations around this country and to old age pensioners. They're talking about cutting the travel pass, they're talking about cutting this and that. It's just not on when you see
it's the unfairness, the
way they indulge in pure luxury.
And frankly, I think if you're a counsellor, you're a public servant. You're employed by the state, and that should be it. You should be only employed by the state, and you shouldn't be allowed to be on any boards.
We have a Foreign Affairs and Diplomatic Service to do these jobs. So
I just exactly, and I think that's the way it should be. Once you've finished your stint as a counsellor, or you've left your party, you have experience then, or you can say you've got the experience to be on these boards. But whilst surely it's a full-time job, isn't that what we're being told?
Well, this is what they're telling us.
That's the thing.
It is a full-time job.
Well, that kind of brings us to our next story. Kind of neatly, GPs told to limit costly new stroke drugs for medical card holders. This is part of a larger story, the whole health cuts issue. I mean, in one section they're giving tablets to TDs, but they're taking them away from stroke victims. So, not very nice,
Well, you see, I think these big pharmaceutical companies have a lot to do with a lot of this they want to maintain their profits anyway.
Mm-hmm.
There is generic stuff now being manufactured in Ireland,
Yeah.
which is quarter the price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
But you go into your local pharmacy, and 9 times out of 10 you'll get the big name brand
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
at top price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can go to Spain and get antibiotics for €3
Mm-hmm.
over the counter. The same ones would cost maybe €30 here.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
there's no justifying it.
Yeah.
They seem that.
And of course, there is the issue where, for a lot of politicians, these pharmaceutical companies that you're talking about, the ones producing the brand name drugs, they're major employers in this country as well. A lot of them.
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
So isn't there a bit of the cycle? Everybody
Well,
feeding each other.
it's like
too?
everything else. And when you're a politician, you don't. Well, maybe now, but they didn't have to say who they were invested in,
Mm-hmm.
or where they had shares, or where they had money coming in. A lot of them, these big guys, like 9 out of 10 of our politicians were solicitors, barristers, all in the professions. And these guys all, in my opinion, had shares in all these companies. So they're not going to rock the boat with nursing homes and things like that, you know.
But I think you've made a very good point in relation to generics, because I don't think this is really focused upon enough.
Yeah.
I think really there are major cost savings to be made with generic drugs.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand, well, I suppose you've alluded to it because of the pharmaceutical
Yes.
companies here in the country. However, there's the HSE population of in excess of 4 million. Why aren't we using generics across the whole of the HSE? That in itself would save tremendous amounts of money.
Billions.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why it
And
hasn't
indeed,
been raised.
when James Riley was asked that question or something about it last night on primetime, the answer kind of just was still baffling, to be honest. It
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
be none the wiser after it anyway.
So that I think that's the major issue, isn't it? You know, they're talking about efficiencies, they're talking about cost savings. Generics is a very, very easy way. You know, you're still treating
Yeah.
the same number of people,
Yeah.
maybe increasing the number of people that you're
They
treating.
could afford it. There's people out there that can't afford their medicine, that doesn't have a medical card, and they're scrimping and saving, and they're doing themselves damage because they're doing without their medicine.
Yeah.
You know, taking half the amount they should be
That's to be
taking.
afraid of now in particular.
Yes.
And that's costing the HSE more money.
Well, because they're in the doors of the
Exactly.
hospital sooner than they would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the other thing is people buying drugs over the internet.
Yeah, which
Yes.
is
And
a
of course,
major
they're
issue.
always
Quite dangerous.
they're counterfeit,
Yeah.
or they're spiked with various dangerous chemicals,
Yeah.
and they're causing themselves harm
Harm,
and injury as
more
well.
harm, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big danger. as well.
We have to go to an ad break, I'm afraid. So we're going to be back after this with more interesting stories.
Pat Short here. You're watching Cavan TV.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Welcome back to Forum Views on Cavan TV. You're with myself, Daniel Downey, and Sheila Riley. And remember, if you want to get on Cavan TV or have an issue brought up, contact us on drumlinmedia@gmail.com or check us out on cavantv.com. Amid all these depressing and miserable stories in the news this week, let's talk about something cheerier.
That's really
Our
happy
Paralympian
story.
team
Yeah.
doing so well, absolutely
Here
well.
they are. Here's the Irish team. That's the equestrian team who scooped third place. But today, Mark Rowan from Westmeath,
second gold medal.
gold.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Just an amazing achievement. There's something so uplifting about it, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And there's 15 medals in total. So the count at the moment, who knows, that's probably going to increase.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's
I think
amazing.
It'd be
really.
nice if we could watch it live on RTE.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Would be.
It's an absolute disgrace that the coverage that they're giving. They can give it on Sky, they give it on BBC, they give it on everything, on our own national station.
Yeah.
They'd rather be showing
I
a
watched it on
cookery
Channel
program.
4.
Channel 4, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I watched
Channel 4
Channel
has
4.
an Irish girl fronting their coverage.
Yeah.
Dorania Mulvihill is
Yeah.
fronting their
It's
coverage.
I don't know what the license have been paid for, but it's,
Possibly they invested a huge amount of money in the Olympics and, they maybe
Spent
didn't have the
the
bucks
budget.
for it. But it does seem like very scant coverage for the success that the team are having over there. Possibly they should have invested less in the Olympics and maybe more in the Paralympics. What do you think?
well, they should have given it equal status anyway, because they are such an inspiration to anybody that has a disability, to not just let themselves go downhill and be depressed, that there is fun and life out there and a career for them.
Well, and actually, I don't think it's just people with disabilities. I think they're inspiring to everybody.
Yes.
But the fact that
If they can do it,
they've
yeah.
overcome adversity and they've had a goal and they've worked towards a goal and they've succeeded. I just think it's amazing, and I agree. I think there should be more television
They're
coverage.
bringing medals
Really,
home. We should cover it.
definitely.
Get a Cavan TV presenter out there, folks. We need some. Sheila, you're
We're
on a
not making
plane.
a pitch or anything.
Well, look, maybe RT have spent all that money, but hopefully they'll have saved some of their money for some of their energy bills, which brings us to our next story.
Yes.
Gas bills to hit €1,000 a year as extra large hike approved. So summer in 2011, the average gas bill was €727. In October, it's expected to be €960.
Yeah.
What happened to the days when the government could only tamper with our bills during budget time? What happened to those?
Well, what is happening, what they're doing now is they're driving people into the black economy, because there'll be queues of them driving over the border to get their oil and gas cylinders and whatever else.
Yeah.
Like, it's only half the price.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't have to be advertising what's happening in Northern Ireland, but it's unreal. That's what they're doing. They don't seem to have the cop on to realise that by doing this, they're actually losing money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And what else about? There is another issue about people that we all know who are literally turning off the heating in their
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean that's
That's
frightening.
dangerous.
It is dangerous, exactly.
And
We're a
eating raw
developed
food.
we're a developed economy, and we have got people who are in real energy poverty at the moment. I mean, the one thing I wanted to raise was the fact that Bord Gáis actually asked for a 7.5% increase, and the energy regulator granted them 8.5%.
Absolutely baffling. Now
It
I know
is.
the energy
Unusual.
regulator had his or her reasons, but it's absolutely baffling how that happened when Bord Gáis only asked for 7.5%.
They're
I should
supposed
take an extra percent.
they're supposed to look after the consumer, surely. I don't understand that.
Well, it kind of links in with we've a few like a double story here. Home heating oil prices have risen by 18%. A survey in the Irish Times this week have seen, and 18% rise there, from 727 to €960 on gas, and then this evening we hear that Electricity Ireland is rising their prices by 5%.
5% up.
It's terrible to see in the winter old folk. One old lady, God love her, she died since, but she used to be afraid to. She could only afford one bag of coal a week, and she got one. Vincent de Paul or someone, people charitable, gave her more once a fortnight. But her carer was telling me when she'd go in the morning, she'd have 2 or 3 coats and jumpers. She went to bed wrapped in all her clothes. She couldn't, no heat in the house, and they're the people we're supposed to be caring
That's
about.
third world conditions for some.
Third world
it is.
conditions we're living in.
Yeah,
There is no
frightening.
excuse, and then you have the fuel allowance cut as well.
Yeah.
Lately, there is no excuse that anybody in a modern country, a developed country, should be doing that.
They claim, you see, that they get more shareholders, they get more people to invest in Electric Ireland and gas. and it's for the shareholders and these big profit people again.
And for the TD's tablets, don't forget.
Oh yeah, they're not too cold now in this house. No.
And then the other thing, of course, is when the commodity prices increase, they immediately put up the increase. Whereas when they fall, we don't seem we don't get the falls in price
either. It takes
either.
a while to kick in.
That's it. Yeah. So that's the other thing I don't understand.
That's another anomaly there for definite.
Look, the thing is, do we have the money for things in the country like a Garda inquiry into church practices on child safety, which is our next story? Another church versus state issue that's coming up. Interesting story.
Very interesting.
Where is there? There's an element of you just become bamboozled with them with all these reports, and with now the next thing is the energy. Do people have the energy for an inquiry?
I think you have to. I think you have to. I think morally you have to look into these things, and I think it's very important that the police or the guards, I should say, are shown or demonstrating the fact that they're taking all of these cases seriously and they're not beholden in any way to the church, because obviously there's been a historical background whereby the church seemed to have complete and utter dominance over all members of the establishment. So I think it is important that these things are taken seriously. I suppose for me, I found it quite staggering that some of the issues are happening quite recently. And still there aren't child protection procedures in place. And you're thinking we've had previous inquiries, there's been all the press coverage, and yet still there aren't proper protection policies in place, and that is frightening.
It won't change, I don't think, until all these old guys are gone and taken out of the picture, because they seem to live in a different world. They don't live. They still haven't. The penny still hasn't dropped.
Yeah, and I think we've seen with Bishop Kirby, with the comment of Bishop Kirby this week about that he thought intelligent people. Abuse was friendship gone too far. Like, I mean, that he thought paedophilia was friendship gone too far. I mean, that just takes your point.
Yeah, and parents. I remember working in a house once just beside Kilnacrot Abbey, and it was that the day before Father Brendan Smith was had to be arrested, right? And this woman was crying because of what happened, because he was had to be arrested. She says, the nicest man on the planet. She says, he was a saint. She says, my two daughters, she says, made the first Holy Communion 4 months ago. And he took them away for the day, bought their beads for them and their prayer books, and took them to Cork for the day.
Yeah, but that was widespread. That wasn't just, I mean, that's all over the county. People are stories like that.
But and it was only later when the whole thing came out, I started thinking, what does that woman thinking now?
And what do you think of all those parents?
The way they were confool the people. But getting back to the bishop, that in where's he, Sligo or he's down that country somewhere, to come out and say that it was crossing the boundary between friendship, you know.
Just seems.
I mean, a dog on the road would know the difference.
Yes, quite. Very well put. Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, we have to move on. We're running short on time, so we'll move on to our next story. Free advice service on mortgages criticised. This was the free advice being offered by the banks. Is it too little, too late for people? That is the criticism which is coming across.
I think, and as well as that, they're saying that it's more favoured for the banks, that the bank selects the accountant who you deal with, and the accountant can't tell you exactly what to do, and they can only kind of present your situation to you. And
it's a highly controlled
we've
form.
Talked a lot about kind of inequality, I think, this evening. Are we coming back to it again? A kind of one rule for one people, another rule for another. The people who can't afford accountants, that the bank are giving them the accountants or is getting that sorted for them, and then they're not getting the advice they should be.
Yeah, well, you'd hope it would be impartial, wouldn't you? But you, as you say again, if there's a certain person is paying your wages, is it going to be impartial? There's so many people in arrears. I mean, it's a staggering number of mortgages that are in arrears. So there is a service required, but I don't know whether this is the appropriate service to deal with the financial problems that a lot of householders are facing at the moment.
Actually, speaking of financial problems, it kind of brings us smoothly to our next story here. The Croke Park deal could we save a lot of money by dumping that? And that's featured quite a bit in the Irish Times this week.
Who wants to take that?
It's a big issue.
It's a hot
big issue.
potato, the Croke
Park
Park deal.
for the
Yeah.
civil servants.
Well, apparently, some €1 billion is being borrowed every month to pay annual increments, the most absurd allowances and index-linked pensions.
Well, it will not be touched as
Do you
long
think
as
it
the
won't?
unions. No, the Labour government and the unions. That's their job, is to hold that there, because they're not going to. Where they're going to get money for the tablets,
Keep an eye on the dog.
and they still can't pay their bar bill.
Yeah.
You know, with all the money they're getting. And I know if you ran up a bar bill here in Cavan, it'd be up to the door looking for it the next day.
Yeah.
It's like there seems to be one law for the others, like the banks. They can change your laser card overnight and tell you if you don't use this one, you'll be your card's gone in 3 months. There's one law for a certain grade of people in this country, and another law for the lesser mortals.
Less mortals, I suppose, is right. Yeah.
I mean,
Yasmin, what do you think?
Well, I think it's time for us to have a grown-up discussion. I think that's the difficulty. You've really put your finger on it, really. The unions and Labour won't see it touched. It's sort of hallowed ground as such. However, we are, beholden to the IMF. We have our debts to pay, and if nursing home places, personal assistance, and other things, as you say, expenses for voluntary groups are all being cut and looked at and considered rightful areas for cut and reasonable places to make cuts. Why isn't the Croke Park being discussed?
Yes.
Well, it's like the Untouchables in America years ago. They couldn't be touched either.
Yeah. Well, that's...
we're going to finish on a good note, I think. Maybe Daniel wants to make this announcement.
You're going to sing.
Well, we do have an announcement to make. Breaking news. Ireland has beat Kazakhstan 2-1. So, congratulations.
The World Cup qualifiers.
Yes,
Fantastic
very,
achievement.
very good. Excellent.
So maybe the soccer is going to uplift us all again. What do you think?
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? Is right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's brilliant. That's
So
great news.
thanks very much, folks, for joining us on the show this evening. Thank you to Jet Calders.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to Yasmin Mazarani. Great to have you on. Folks, thank you very much for tuning in and watching us this evening. And Sheila Riley, thank you for being a great co-host again.
Thank you, Daniel.
So remember, folks, if you want to get on the show or issues on the show, contact us on drumlinmedia@gmail.com or cavantv.com. So see you next week. Bye.